Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of What's on My Desk. Now, I often see comments below in regards to some of the watches that I review on What's on My Desk, especially when I review the crazy expensive ones that are $500,000, mid-repeaters, tourbillons, etc., etc. Everybody's saying, hey, Roman, why don't you come down to earth a little bit and see what you can do in regards to, showing watches that people can actually afford. A majority of the audiences out there can afford. So what I've done is I've decided to come back down to earth.
We copy you down, Eagle. Tranquility, the Eagle has landed.
And that is to review watches that are actually in a lower price range, nevertheless still great watches. I brought 4 pieces with me today. I bought a Raymond Whale watch, I bought a Movado watch, as well as a Maurice Lacroix watch and a Citizen's watch. Names that I'm sure all of you guys are familiar with if you're someone that's into watches. So I'm gonna kick things off with a couple of automatics, and the 2 automatics that I brought with me is the Raymond Whale as well as the Maurice Lacroix. Let's start with the Raymond Whale watch. This one is the Raymond Whale Freelancer. Automatic movement, see-through back, brushed stainless steel case, beautiful blue dial with Arabic numerals, and a date at 3 o'clock. Fairly standard looking watch. It comes on a perforated rubber strap. I think it's an overall good look. The watch is a 40mm timepiece, comes on a deployment buckle. 1976, Mr. Raymond Weil founded the company Raymond Weil. Creative enough, right? He was later joined by his son-in-law, Olivier Burnham, I think is his name, however you pronounce it, who is now the CEO, and then I think his son runs operation at this moment. Traditional Swiss watchmaking goes into the making of every single Raymond Weil timepiece. So just all the efforts that you'd see put into any other Swiss watch brand that may be considered a higher-end Swiss brand goes into the making of every single one of these watches. Their very first model that were produced was called the Amadeus. Even though they claim to be innovative and new and so on and so forth, which is what every new company out there will do, it kind of looked like a Rolex Datejust to me. You guys be the judge, take a look at the picture. If you think of Raymond Weil, you most likely will think of a ladies' Parsifal collection. I'll pop one of those watches up there. That's sort of that iconic Raymond Weil design that Raymond Weil is more known for. Watch retails for $1,695, which is actually extremely reasonable for an automatic Swiss manufactured watch with history behind it. It's not that young, 76. This company is as old as I am, and it does have enough history, it does have enough innovation, and it does make quality timepieces. And the reason I know that, even though you guys may think that all we sell is really, really high-end watches, we also sell lower-end watches, such as these. I have hundreds of these in stocks, and believe me, they sell like hotcakes. Why do they sell like hotcakes? A, they tend to discount higher, and the reason I discount higher is because Maurice Lacroix pumps out numbers. They make their money by making a lot of watches, not limited editions or something super exclusive. It's not a small production, it's a huge production, in fact. Thousands and thousands of these pieces get sold, and guess what? Because we discount it at 60% doesn't mean the companies are making money or are not successful. They're not trying to be as exclusive as Richard Mille or some other independent watchmaker by making 500 pieces a year, marking them up to $100,000 a watch, and therefore making their profits this way. They do it by making quantities. Even though they're making quantities of well-made Swiss watches. So there you have it, Raymond Weil. Moving on to another Swiss manufacturer with actually a pretty similar history as Raymond Weil is Maurice Lacroix. This is a timepiece from their Masterpiece collection. Date, power reserve at 7 o'clock. It is an automatic movement done in a polished stainless steel case with a fairly beautifully decorated movement. I'm going to put the 2 side by side. You can sort of see here. Seems like the movement's actually the same, but they're not. Let's talk about Maurice Lacroix for a second. Maurice Lacroix is also about 44 years old because in 1976, it was actually Desco von Schulitz, an internationally operating company, that's decided that we're going to start making watches. This is a company that's been around since the late 1800s, making watches and movements for other brands around Switzerland. And then they decided, you know what? We know how to do this stuff. We've been doing this for 100 plus years. Let's make our own watches. So they came out with a brand, Maurice Lacroix, in 1976, just like Raymond Weil did. And again, they were very successful. Why? Because they've been doing this for quite a long time. So it was really not that big a deal for them to come up with their own brand, naming it Maurice Lacroix. If you think of Maurice Lacroix, you won't automatically think of this particular watch. You'll probably think of all those funky retrograde watches that they've made in the past. If you see the watches that Ina's going to pop up on the screen, you'll immediately realize, oh, wait a minute, that's the Maurice Lacroix watch. I know what that watch looks like. Nevertheless, same fate as Raymond Weil. A beautifully made Swiss watch with all the traditional Swiss watchmaking. Maurice Lacroix tends to be a bit on a higher end price. This watch retails for $3,900 as opposed to this watch, which is seemingly the same, that retails for about half that. But again, Maurice Lacroix, same fate. They make their monies in quantities rather than exclusivity. Notice I didn't say quality because the quality is superb on both of these watches. And again, both of them have a decent amount of history. I mean, the brands have been around for 45 years roughly, right? This particular company has been around since the 1800s. So all in all, the history is there and so is the quality. I don't remember any of these guys ever coming back for service right away or having any type of issues right off the bat. And again, we've sold hundreds of these. I'm gonna put the two side by side so you sort of get a look. And it's also, these watches are sort of that sporty / dressy watches, which I discussed in the last WOMD, if you guys remember. I personally, if I had to go with one, I'd probably go with this Raymond Whale. I love that blue dial. This is just a little bit too plain for me, but nevertheless, both very classy and at the same time maybe even sporty timepieces. Let's move on to a couple of pieces that do not house an automatic movement. And the first watch I'm going to talk about, which in my eyes is certainly an iconic timepiece, and you guessed it, that's going to be the Movado Museum watch. And anybody out there that knows just a tiny little bit about watches, you don't have to be the biggest watch enthusiast, will know that this is a Movado timepiece, and furthermore will know that this is a museum collection. Why? Because this watch is iconic. So the museum was designed by the American designer Nathan George Horvath, if you guys remember. This was in 1947. And the watch dial was designed very simply. It's got the solitary dot at 12 o'clock, and all that does is symbolizes the sun at high noon. Of course, that makes it a little bit difficult to distinguish time, but nevertheless, that was their whole ordeal, and this is how the museum watch was born. Now, the Horvath dial was selected for the permanent design collection at the Museum of Modern Art in New York in 1960. This is the first watch dial that was awarded this distinction. Let's talk monies. So this Movado retails for $1,195. It's two-tone stainless steel timepiece, which is, some will say, reasonably priced for such an iconic timepiece. Some may say not, considering this is just a quartz watch, as everybody dubs. There's a lot of history behind this. And again, the company, the Movado Group, is a humongous company. I mean, these guys, they were founded in 1881 as Eli Deacham Ray, something, I cannot pronounce that name, group, something or other. And then in 1905, it changed its name to Movado. Movado Group holdings are humongous. They have obviously Movado, they have Concord, they own Ebel. They just bought that MBMT company that dubbed the Instagram watch. You guys know what I'm talking about. I talked about them on one of my episodes. They paid $100 million for that startup. Then they have a bunch of licensed brands like Hugo Boss, Armani, a bunch of these designer watches, right? Old-fashioned watches, Tommy Hilfiger, Ferrari watches, which we also sell. I think we have those as well. What else is there? Rebecca Minkoff, Lacoste. Movado previously owned Piaget. This company is a huge powerhouse. They sell hundreds of thousands of watches under different brand names that I just mentioned. I think this particular model we're selling online again is a 60 or 65 off, and we sell hundreds of them. I have hundreds of Movados in stock, and I sell hundreds of them on a weekly basis. Why? Because this particular Movado is indeed an iconic timepiece. So anyone that's out there whose price range in watches is sort of under that $1,000 price range should certainly own one of these or a variation of, because the museum piece is definitely iconic. And speaking of iconic, I'm going to move on to one timepiece that will most likely soon to be iconic, and that is the Citizen's, specifically the Citizen's Eco Drive, the watch that never needs a battery, right? The Eco Drive. I sound like a commercial. Do I sound like a commercial? Ian, play the commercial for Citizen's Eco Drive.
Introducing the Citizen Eco Drive 1.
Did I sound like them? Maybe. Anyway, so here's the Citizen's Eco Drive chronograph. Now, what's so special about Eco Drive? I don't have to tell you guys, I'm sure you already know. And that is the fact that this watch is driven by the sun. There's no battery. Citizen as a company is eco-conscious. So their whole thing was, we're going to make watches that power themselves, much like these battery-operated watches. However, we're going to power it from the sun, because what we don't want is we don't want landfills filled up with these tiny little batteries, which add up over time. If you can imagine how many of those tiny little batteries are out there that power various things out there, not just watches, there's millions and millions of those batteries that are being wasted and put into landfills every single year. Those things do not decompose very well. About Citizen as the company. The company's 100 years old. That's right, Citizen is 100 years old. And a lot of you guys may think, or I was one of those guys that thought that the EcoDrive technology was something that's new, it's hot, latest, and the greatest. It's not. It's been around for almost 40 years now. So, very much in likes of the other two brands that I mentioned to you. It's something different. It's something unique. It's something for those that are eco-conscious, and Citizen does really care. They're involved in a lot of different programs around the world. The Citizen Naismith Trophy or something that they give out. They just partner up with Disney on a lot of efforts, which is also a very eco-conscious company. They have the National Merit Scholarships, Good 360. There's a lot of things that they do for the world outside of just making watches. So they are, besides being eco-friendly or eco-conscious, they also do a lot of good around the world and help out a lot of people out there. What can I say about this watch? It's a hell of a looking watch. It's a beautiful, beautiful chronograph. It's well executed. The bracelet is a bit on a flimsy end, I gotta be honest with you, but the watch itself is absolutely outstanding. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take this watch and I'm gonna put it next to a Rolex Submariner and ask you guys a question. So today I'm actually wearing my old Rolex single red sub. I'm gonna put this watch next to it and take out the name Rolex, take out the name Citizen, and tell me which is the better looking watch. I'm fairly certain 9 out of 10 of you guys will say that the watch on the right is much better looking than the watch on the left. Of course, the fact that the watch on the left is a Rolex and this is a Citizen, 9 out of 10 of you guys will say, oh, I'll take the Rolex, obviously, if not 10 out of 10. So be honest with myself, and you guys be honest with yourself, and comment below, let me know. In terms of pure looks, you have to go with the Citizen that's on the right. Just a better looking watch. Citizens is the cheapest retailing watch on my desk from everything that I just showed you. This watch retails for $400. So we're selling this watch for 45% off retail, about half price, I guess you can say that. So for $200 some, this is a hell of a pickup. Bottom line is, what all these timepieces, and when people start dubbing watches fashion watches, and oh, this is sort of that lower end watch, or B brand or C brand, there's lots of different names that people call watches that are bluntly just cheaper, okay? Brand name recognition is what plays a huge role. Everybody that's watching this episode right now, if I threw a Rolex out here and gave you a choice, you would all go with a Rolex because, hey, that's that higher end brand, king of all watches, right? Rolex. But if you think about it, both Citizens, Movado, Maurice Lacroix, and Raymond Weil are both also huge, huge brand names. And the reason they're huge brand names is because, again, 9 out of 10 of you probably recognize every single one of these brand names. Yes, people would rather have a Mercedes versus a Toyota, but doesn't mean that Toyota is not a huge name. It is a huge name. Doesn't mean they don't make quality cars. They do make quality cars. It's just certain watch brands tend to position themselves within the market at a specific price range, and that's the business model that works for them. And that's just the bottom line. So if you're out there shopping for your watch and your budget is $1,000 and under, there's a gazillion different options out there. These are not the only watches that we sell for under $1,000. I have hundreds of different watches in stock that are under $100. And let me tell you something, for every $10,000 watch, or I should say for every $500,000 watch that I sell about 1,000 of these. And it's actually a pretty important part of our business because it keeps the cash going. Of course, for me to get out there and get such great deals on these, oftentimes I receive them by the pallet and sometimes by the container. So I do invest a significant amount of money into these watches in order to bring forth a price and be competitive in the market, because lots of people sell these things. There are a lot more sellers out there selling cheaper watches than $500,000 watches. We tend to do a little bit of everything. I told you guys before, we're a fairly diversified company. So from $50 rings to $500,000 watches, we get it all. And now this sounds like a Luxury Bazaar commercial, which is not what I do on this channel. So I'm gonna stop with all that and just ask you guys to comment below if this sort of satisfied the comments that I see oftentimes saying, Roman, show us something we can afford, something we can actually buy. And if you want me to continue reviewing cheaper watches, again, comment below, let me know what you think. Otherwise, if you'd like this episode, make sure you hit the like button. If you're watching this and you're not subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button. It's important to me. I love seeing my subscriber count go up, which means that I'm doing something right, and it motivates me to do this further. Other than that, I'll see you guys next week for more watch reviews and other videos.